Okay, so I have a friend, a golf coach who had a huge impact on my coaching. I met him in 2004 at a PGA teaching clinic seminar, um, and I just knew right away that this guy was doing something different. I knew that he was studying a different part of coaching, a different part of training and instructing than a lot of coaches were, and so I was really intrigued. And I asked him for a book list. I said, Mr. Hebron, his name's Michael Hebron. I asked Mr. Hebron, could you give me a list of books that I should read? And he handed me a sheet, and it was front and back, 10-point font, no spaces, two columns. I mean, it must have been 150 or 250 books. So I went through and just ticked off every single one of those books. So Mr. Hebron, if you catch this video, I listened to you, I read the books. And so what I learned, and I think what Mr. Hebron was talking about and is still talking about today, is there's a difference between skill building type of training, the skill building type of training, and the sort of playing to learn or tangential learning, I think is probably a more accurate term. When we talk about playing to learn or tangential learning, it's the idea or the concept that, and this is a very proven concept, it's definitely been proven in multiple studies, that we actually, by putting ourselves in different scenarios, constantly changing the variables, we learn at a faster rate than if we were just to hit the same shot over and over and over again. Now, as I said before, I think it can be very, very valuable, not just in skill building, but also in building confidence to hit the same shots over and over again. However, our greatest learning, the highest boost of learning that we can come across, comes when we're changing the location and changing the variables of our shots constantly. So that would mean this type of practice would mean that you might take 5 balls, but you would hit a chip shot from 5 yards off the green to 15 yards away. Maybe that would be your gap wedge or your pitching wedge or your sand wedge. And then you would go hit a pitch shot, and then you would go hit a high pitch, and then you'd hit a long chip, and then you'd hit a short pitch, and you'd be constantly changing the variables and changing the environment that you're in, because in this way we're really forcing our brain to learn, to figure out what type of shot I need to hit, what club to use. So the point of this video, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I know, based on all of the studies that I've read and based on the really positive coaching that I've seen from Michael Hebron and other coaches like himself, the the biggest thing that you can do for yourself, the greatest thing you can do for yourself, is set aside some time for this playing to learn kind of concept. So we can do all the drills we want and we can hit shot after shot after shot, but it has been proven that if we move around and we change locations and change variables, it forces our brain to be more adaptive. It forces our brain to really get creative, and that's really going to make the biggest leap, the biggest jump in our games. The biggest moment of improvement is going to come when we actually can leave the skill building area and start experimenting with different shots, different variables. So that might mean being just a stock shot here. We know this stock shot. We hit it with our sandwich. We know it's going to roll out 11 yards after it lands 8, but we might have the very next shot be a really short chip to really force us to adapt and change. And that adapting and that changing is what really spikes the learning. So take that into consideration. I absolutely suggest that in all of your practice sessions, you leave a little bit of time aside or a lot of time aside for this tangential learning or this playing to learn type of practice.